Well, May and I are super excited to be here chatting with you. So let's kick it off. May, you want to kind of maybe tell us a little bit about Writer and share with the audience what you're up to these days?
Yeah, totally. We are in San Francisco, Series B company, and we are a fully integrated generative AI platform. And what we mean by that is we are large language models plus all of the tooling that companies need to build useful applications fast. We call them applications, some people call them GPTs, but essentially we've integrated the RAG with the LLM and reusable AI guardrails, and business users can actually do all the continuous data work that you need to keep digital assistants actually good and smart, and engineers can ship much faster in a multi-cloud fashion. When we started 3 years ago, we sold mostly marketing apps to marketers, and so it's a shift that we've made really over the past 18 months of investing in the platform. And we get the awesome privilege of having Whit to sit on our board.
My privilege too. And she's being obviously a little bit shy here. The companies that Writer is selling to are very impressive, highly regulated companies, household name companies all over the world. So we'll talk some more about that. But first, let's kind of start with the big picture. I mean, here we are in this crazy world of generative AI. Everyone's talking about it. Everybody's building it into their products. Every company around the world is trying to figure out the AI strategy. And you know, you've been in this for a while, well before kind of the rest of the world woke up to this. And so talk to me about where you think we are as a society, as a business, in our AI journey.
Yeah, sure. My co-founder and I, our first company was in the machine translation space, and that's really where we started building and using transformers. We started Writer in 2020, and we called the company Writer because it was very clear, even in those early days, that AI was going to be better than people at reading and writing, and certainly faster, and all those things have happened. Now, the company's called Writer because if you can write it, you can build it. And what we're really trying to do is democratize access to generative AI. But really, pre the AI moment, you know, we really had to lead with value and solution and business impact of what the platform was versus technology. And you know, now it's awesome. All doors are opened, and everybody's got an AI initiative. But actually, I think the secret to our success and just the really rapid growth and the acceleration of the growth even has been that we still lead with solution and business impact and value. And you get the door opened by you know, the AI initiative, but then it's really, you know, what do we do with that that counts. And we're really proud, you know, at Franklin Templeton, at Goldman, at Johnson & Johnson, at Accenture. The AI investment in Writer is by far the highest ROI, orders of magnitude, than any other investment they are making, and that's why we've got, you know, 200% NRR and growing, and a really high renewal rate in the high 90s.
And if we look at this from the customer point of view, I feel like it's still very early in the adoption curve. You know, we saw companies trying a little bit of everything, I think, last year, and this year feels like the year of the prove it to me, what actually works, what delivers value. But I feel like we're still early in that journey. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're biased because most folks haven't heard about Writer in the enterprise. They've heard about Microsoft, they've heard about OpenAI. And so the kinds of customers that come inbound to us are really pregnant with stuff that's not working. And so it can mask the reality, which is just good news for everybody in this room. The vast majority of the TAM is still on the sidelines, believing that Microsoft is going to be their savior and deliver generative AI, you know, in all the places that counts. And there's still a ton of white space. Most of the space is blank to be filled by all of us. And you know, I do think like the actual excitement and just, you know, literally like just the media coverage, everything really does mask the reality that most people are doing nothing with AI at work, you know, beyond the really basic, you know, productivity stuff.
And experimentation, yeah. Well, I think that covers a lot about like where the hype is and that we're still early and what have you, but what about the use cases? I mean, you guys advise your customers pretty deeply on where they should start and what use cases are going to be most likely to yield ROI. but maybe you can extrapolate that out of the more individual use cases and industries and talk a little bit about how do you help customers discover what use cases are likely to be the ones that actually prove out the value and deliver real benefit.
So we have focus industries at Ryder. We really focus on regulated industries where the non-determinism of generative AI is a real problem, and that steepness of the curve is only making the problem worse. Like the more capable the models become, actually, the more constraints the enterprise needs to put on them, and the harder it is for them to actually operationalize through workflows and tools that are built for like human-sized chunks of how we do work. And so for us, the use case maps actually, we break those down by vertical. And so it's kind of a cheat sheet, like where the gold is buried, kind of by vertical, based on our learnings over the past years of doing this for the enterprise. But there is, one thing that we're always really careful with, a potential for like a gross underutilization of AI if you are too prescriptive and too use case driven. There are so many opportunities to create new workflows, things that you wouldn't otherwise ever do once you really get a good handle of what the AI capabilities are. We have a life sciences company where the marketers built an app in Ryder where they can see all of their competitors' ads right in the interface where they create campaign briefs. And so it actually really helps them, ideate and think about ways that they're going to be able to differentiate vis-a-vis what's in the market already. And that's not, a substitution, even a reinvention. Like, it is, what's the stuff that like we never would have thought to do if it was going to be all manual. We've got a customer in the pet food space where we found out that they had this like literally months-long process of like every ad and video needing to get legal sign-off by country for whether the dog was overweight or whether the cat had accessories and like all of these legal issues. And so we built an app that allowed them to automate that. Literally, like an 8-week SLA became an 8-second SLA. And rather than kind of substituting at the lawyer level, like all the way up at global, when they actually like built the kind of kernel of what those campaigns were going to be, they built that. They built our app into the process. And so there are a lot of things that you just wouldn't think of doing that AI really opens up. And so, we've chosen to kind of narrow in, CPG, retail, healthcare, financial services, that's it. And then go really, really deep, because being too prescriptive on the use cases, is you're not going to get those amazing kind of bottoms-up ideations of what could be.
And there are so many opportunities. I mean, that's the good news in all this, right? Well, let's talk about, you mentioned LLMs. There's a somewhat maybe controversial set of viewpoints out there of, do you use open source LLMs? Do you use much more narrow, more well-defined, more specific LLMs? Ryder has its own set of LLMs, and we're seeing new LLMs come out every day. There's, thousands.
Literally today.
Yeah, literally today. So how do you think about that? And what sort of are the implications for Ryder and what you see coming forward with dealing with customers when they've got so many that they could potentially leverage?
Yeah, and I see kind of two big strategic things to think through here. The first is, what happens to your company or to your platform or to your value or your moat or your differentiation as the underlying, capabilities of the models improve. And I think there is, for folks who don't build models and just see it from the outside, I think there is a misguided view on like where transformers or even the big kind of body of work that we're doing in the next generation of our models, we're calling large reasoning models, trained on use cases around data tool use and capable of doing agentic workflows. But like even with those amazing mind-blowing demos that we see from our own team, you still need the hard work of connecting it to companies' own data and companies' own workflows and companies' own processes. And yes, AI increasingly is helping us do that as well. But there is still a customization process, and AGI won't solve that. And so really being able to build a product and a product vision and a go-to-market around, yes, the acceleration of our vision actually as the underlying capabilities improve, that's a big part of what we think about. And then the second kind of big strategic consideration for us is, as the LLM market gets incredibly crowded and confusing for buyers, what does that mean for how we help educate our customer on, why like the 150th LLM to launch that month, it shouldn't necessarily be something that changes what they've been thinking about or their strategy. And so, for startups in a space that is new and dynamic and highly competitive, it can really be scary. But, like from steamroll to like what the hyperscalers are saying and doing, there's a lot of opportunity, and startups should not be dissuaded from, all the big guys trying to make a ton of money.
Yeah, hear, hear. Let's switch gears and talk a little bit more about the founder journey. And you started this company years ago, well before kind of the current wave of Gen AI that's out there now and has been since the end of 22. Talk a little bit about kind of the key challenges that you were dealing with in the very early days as a startup founder, finding your footing, finding who your ideal customer is, and then what happened as the world woke up to, the whole Gen AI space, because that had to have put both a bunch of air behind your back or wind behind your back, but it also must have created a bunch of pressure. So talk to us a little bit about your challenges as a founder and leader in those two phases.
Yeah, the seed stage of Writer, kind of 2020 and early, even the first half of 2021, we had a bit of an identity crisis. And, were we prosumer? Were we maybe even consumer? I remember having conversations with folks I trusted around whether, we should be a consumer company. Really making the bet on enterprise was sort of the graduation to the A for us. And then, from the A to the B, even before ChatGPT, for us really going from kind of single function, we sold into marketing at the beginning, to multifunction, and then making IT our buyer, that was a very strategic decision. And we were really at the beginning of that when we raised our B, but there was so much depth and adoption, when we had done that. And very naturally, we were, a product-led business from day one. Most of our customers were using us on 4 or more teams anyway, marketing plus 3 others, product, support, sales. But what we were basically now saying around the time we did our B, so like about last summer, we said, we think the way AI is going to get, bought and deployed in the enterprise is really going to be IT driven. And so what is our value prop for IT? And that's, we really kind of like shifted the company. And, I think at all of the big pivotal strategic moments, including we're going to build our own models and be completely self-sufficient, we kind of burn the boats and don't look back. Like, once you get enough conviction, you're not half in, you're not half out. We turn away a lot of business now. We don't do manufacturing. We don't do conversational bots for your website. We don't do professional services. We don't sell to agencies. It's a long list that we enable people on what we don't do. And that is really important because there is so much that you can do, and that's what's so exciting about generative AI. There's literally, if you're in generative AI, there's no business, no function, no persona, no business process that you can't improve. And so the question is, where do you start, and where do you focus? Where do you build a moat around your capabilities? And there will be a lot of multi-billion-dollar ARR startups born right now. And we're all going to build, yes, in the shadow of Google and Microsoft. But again, there's so much to do.
It's happened so many times where companies have had to build in the shadow of those large companies who have a laundry list of SKUs, and yet found the right way in, and Writer has certainly done that. So it's, don't be daunted. I want to switch to another topic that I think will be really relevant for the founders in the room. Being part of your board and being part of the decision to raise a Series B and working with you through that process, one of the things that really impressed me was how deliberate and thoughtful you were about what you wanted your board composition to look like post Series B. And so I don't want to give away your secrets, but I'd rather you tell the story. Share a little bit with the group here about why you approached it so deliberately and what things you took into account when you were really thinking about who you wanted on that board.
Yeah, really great question. And we had a wonderful board meeting yesterday, and a bunch of our exec team after was like, that's the best board meeting I've ever been at any company. How did you make that happen? And you know, part of it is like in our first company, we didn't get a lot of value from the board. So very intentionally in the second company, really wanted to make sure that, you know, the board really represented, you know, where we wanted to be, you know, what kind of company we wanted to be over the next few years, and really working backwards from that. So we have an incredible voice of the executive in Whit. And Whit, you know, wasn't the original person who did the deal at Insight. A very important person at Insight, in addition to Whit, did the deal. And we were like, can we have Whit, please? And so that was a very intentional thing to bring on, you know, the voice of the CMO, voice of the COO. You know, she's been a multi-time executive. And then for the B, you know, it was very important that we had somebody who had seen hyperscale before. And Iconic and Doug, you know, they've really seen that many times. They're in Snowflake, they're in Datadog, companies that are growing, you know, as fast as us, and we want to make sure we are held to that continued high standard as we scale. And then we now have an office in London, and international was an important piece, and so we brought on Boulderton, again, a year before we just did the office, and you know, they've been with us for a year helping us really plan. WonderCo is an observer on our board, and they've also been an incredible help. Jeffrey Katzenberg and Justin Wexler. Their CXO community connections have also, you know, been great, and like that's also something that we saw. Howie, who spoke earlier, just like referenced them so well, and so you know, we spoke to founders that we trusted, and really, you know, even before we started our B, kind of had an idea of what we wanted around the table. And we actually have a big board. We have a lot of observers. Like, these are not, you know, tiny board meetings. Sometimes you get that advice, keep the board small. You know, yes, we control the board, my co-founder and I, but, you know, there are a lot of voices in that room. It's a very well-coordinated meeting. But it is, you know, it's a diverse set of perspectives, and we make the room and the space to hear them. And, you know, it's been really powerful to have that kind of coalition behind the company.
Yeah, and I will also add that I personally watched May build relationships about a year before the Series B with the key investors that she might want to have lead the round, and really build trusted relationships with them, both I think as a way to get them on board with the idea of leading around, but also, frankly, to test whether or not they were the right fit for the board. And the other thing I think you didn't mention was that I feel like every single person on the board is somebody that you more or less handpicked to say, I know what that person can bring to the table and how they can help Writer through the next phases of growth. And so I just think there's some fabulous takeaways there for the rest of you in the room that are founders, as to, you know, really think hard about who you want on your board and who's going to be helpful and what do they bring to the table, and how do you prep for that well in advance. So when you're getting a call from an investor, you know, 6 months to a year before you want to raise, I don't know, if you've heard that they're a great company to work with, you should probably take that call and start building that relationship early. Okay, so in the minute and a half we have left, what's keeping you up at night these days, May?
What isn't? The laundryman, like, also literally.
Oh my God, bringing laundry to your room in the
yeah,
middle of the
totally.
night.
I could not go back to sleep. If you're a founder, you know your sleep is like incredibly light, and so I'm woken up by anything. That's why I was yawning backstage. You know, this is not like sexy, but like enablement. So, you know, I would love to hire 100 people a quarter, but, you know, they need to learn the business and the product and the vision. You know, we're very product focused when we sell. We're literally building prototypes while somebody talks about their problems, you know, and it's like a very product focused sale. Seeing is believing in AI. We don't just talk about it, we build it. And this is also a very dynamic space. And so, you know, from the voice track to slides to what we show to the customer base and the customer stories, it all evolves so quickly. And so, you know, we keep hiring to a really high bar, but also once they come into the business? You know, how quickly can we really operationalize them? And everybody's running around like a chicken with their head cut off because there's so much to do. And so how do you really take the OGs and the people who really know what they're doing and have them be the ones who are coaching the new people versus the folks who just got onboarded coaching the new people? You know, there's just a lot of like deliberate you know, slowing down to speed up that were like just these last couple of weeks that we were really like, okay, Q1 is done, it was amazing, like let's really make sure we ingest everybody we just hired. You know, as a percentage of the whole company, you know, I think like 85% have been here less than a year. You know, it's like scary. And so that is really the biggest thing right now. The team's working on some incredible product releases and features. The steepness of the learning curve, especially for our customers, you know, can be very scary. And there's just so much relationship building that you get when you are the ones who have introduced, you know, Accenture or United Healthcare or Pfizer to this like new way of doing things. And so there's a ton of energy that comes into the business because you're feeding off your customers and your users' energy. And so it definitely buys you some room in terms of like folks are obviously coming new to the business who are very self-motivated to learn and absorb and be impactful. But we definitely have to be more intentional about, you know, getting to high productivity very quickly because the business needs them, and then we got to go out and hire more.
Yeah, so the journey from, you know, your first 10 to 20 employees to your first 200 employees is, you know, fraught with risk if you don't bring them along for the ride and teach them how to be great employees and rep the business the right way.
Yeah, and also know, you know, make sure you haven't made any mistakes, you know, and I think like a lot of our founder friends who are, you know, 500 or 600 employees, you know, tell the story of, you know, you hire somebody and you're growing fast. Nobody wants to fire somebody who's underperforming, but you just open another rack above them. You know, you're not really fixing the problem. I want to really make sure we're not making those kinds of mistakes.
Love it. Well, thanks, May, for sharing some of the great insights, and thank all of you for your time and attention and your support. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.